Today's book is called The Art of Learning, An Inner Journey to Optimal Performance by Josh Waitzkin. So today I'm just going to take a few minutes to extract some of the nuggets I took from the book. The first of which is that there is always more than one solution to any meaningful problem. So to take an example from my own life, when I decided to learn Python programming, I decided to let my curiosity guide me and to learn online. And eventually I came across a guy I hired as a mentor called Clever Programmer. And the reason I hired him was that he was already embodying the lifestyle that I wanted. So the reason I wanted to learn Python was that I wanted to have a good understanding of the language, good enough to solve real world problems, and I wanted to create money from that too. And so it just made sense to hire somebody who's already living what I want. The next thing I looked at was that in the book was that we need to move beyond proficiency to an expression of ourselves. So in my own life, I've seen that from reading, I've gained a better understanding of the principles behind success and the principles behind people who are achieving stuff in the world. And I've started to see that in order to get to my expression of that and to see my and to experience my expression of that, it involves taking action, and it involves growing in the areas I'm already weak in and seeing the strengths that I already have and leveraging them. And that's one point that Josh did in the book quite well. He has a philosophy of being a big or small fish in a big pond. So when he entered into the world of Tai Chi, he could have played it safe and just competed in America and had easier competition, but he chose to go to Taiwan and compete there. And whenever he felt he was weak in an area, he would seek out an opponent and who was stronger than him in that area. And he called it investing in loss. So he'd put himself in situations where he was constantly losing, but he was constantly learning from it. So eventually he got better and he would defeat these people. He also was keenly aware or highly aware of his strength, and his strength was he had a strategic mind. So rather than trying to be the more powerful man in Tai Chi, he had realized that he had a strategic mind that he could utilize from his days as a chess prodigy. So that's what he did. And what I noticed too when he was playing chess, that he had a different approach to maybe the conventional approach. So when he was learning, he'd learn from the end game backwards, because he realized that that was reduced complexity. There was less pieces on the board, less for him to process, so he'd work his way back. There was 3 core principles throughout this book that he mentioned. The first is making small circles. So this is just the idea that you take one single technique until you take on the essence of it without losing the power. So the best example I could kind of give of that is in computer programming. When you first see a for loop or a while loop, it will appear foreign to you, and it'll take a long time, or it'll take a bit of time for you to process it. And but what I've seen is that from practice and repetition, gradually you'll be able to see the constants from the variables, and your brain will be able to process it a lot quicker. The second principle then was slowing down time. So this was focusing on a select group of techniques and practicing and repeating them until the mind perceived them in so much detail that time appears to slow down. And then the last principle he mentioned is the illusion of the mystical. So this is just a combination of the previous 2 principles, so that when you're against an opponent, you'll be able to perceive things quicker, because you've taken the time to work on the 2 principles that principle is based on. So this book I'd recommend for anybody who's thinking of learning a new skill, but on the surface it appears completely different. So you might be somebody who's thinking about transitioning into programming, but you've got a linguistic background and you can see the similarities. I suppose for myself, I can give you the example that when I decided to learn computer programming, I focused more on what I already knew. So I already saw that in linguistics, we talk about semantics and syntax in the same manner that we talk about it in programming. And I also noticed that in programming, structure is very important because the code won't run otherwise. The same in languages, the structure of the sentence is very important if you want to be comprehended more easily. So if you are on the verge of learning something new and putting yourself out there, then I'd recommend this book because it'll show you how you can leverage what you already know And what you will find too is that if you are interested in something, you will learn it, you'll find a way to do it. And your previous experience in an unrelated field will turn into an advantage quite quickly. That's essentially what businesses and the world in general is looking for. It's looking for groups of people who see things differently and who can work together. So you'll turn a weakness into a strength if you persevere on that front. So anyway, I'd recommend reading the book if you want to read a little bit more about it. I've got a blog post which you can click into under the video. So until next time, have fun and enjoy the process.